Welcome to the Nothing for Granted podcast, where we are eradicating the funding inequality gap that exists for women in business. And we do this by providing you access to money and opportunities that can help you grow that vision that's in your belly, that vision that just won't let you go. And so in today's episode, I'm going to be equipping you with the number one area in your proposal that you're overlooking. This episode is for you if you feel like you are defeated, if you feel like you're missing the mark each and every time that you submit a proposal. If you wonder what are the motives behind all these essay questions that the funder is throwing at us, what are they really trying to get at? And if you want to know how you can nearly guarantee that you're giving the best, most spot on proposal each and every time, let's jump right in. What's the number one thing that aspiring entrepreneurs and current business owners have in common? It's probably your need for money. You've heard the age-old tale that goes, takes money to make money. And if there's one thing that this serial entrepreneur knows is, you need money. I've created a resource for you, the busy female visionary entrepreneur who is desperate to grow this business that keeps her up at night, this dream that you absolutely know will change the world and the trajectory of the generations to come. It's called the Funding with Foresight Matrix, an entire database created with millions of dollars available to you. Free money that you don't have to pay back. Completely categorized by your industry. So whether you're a baker, a photographer, or a brick and mortar location, there is a grant with your name on it. Get the resource that your business can't afford not to have in its arsenal bag by visiting buffaloambitionco.com/fund-your-research. Get yours today. All right, visionaries. So if we are looking at a proposal, and I encourage you to, as you're listening to this episode, pull up the actual grant that you're working on, whether you are using a grant off of the Funding with Foresight Matrix, or if you are using just another grant that you came across. I encourage you to pull it up so that you can follow along with me. So the number one area in your proposal that you're totally missing out is the rubric. Yep, I know. I bet some of you are saying, what? There's a rubric? The funders tell you exactly what they want? It's true. Absolutely. So do you remember back in fifth grade when you would be assigned an essay and the teacher would tell you exactly what your essay had to have? Paragraph 1, you need this. Paragraph 2, you need this. Paragraph 3, don't forget the conclusion needs to include this. If you think back to grade school, right? The rubric is the criteria that's used when scoring. It's what grant reviewers or panelists, it's what they use to determine whether or not you are going to be awarded a grant. And so it's interesting to me how so many people say, well, I really don't know where I went wrong. I wish I had some feedback on my grant. I wish I could know what it is I'm doing wrong. Well, number one, are you using the tools they're giving you? They literally tell you exactly what they want from you if you know where to look and how to use it. And so today I really want to touch on the questions of where do you find the rubric and how can you use it to your benefit so that you can hit the bullseye every single time. The rubric is super important for you to follow because again, it tells you exactly what the funder wants, and it's saving you so much time. Guys, if you know exactly what needs to be in your proposal, you're not going to waste your time writing wishy-washy things. You're going to spend your time writing in exactly what they're saying they're looking for. So you are going to be very specific. You are going to make sure that you have included everything that they say they already want, and in turn making it easier for them. So I actually have a grant application rubric in front of me, and it's a really great way for you to understand exactly how this works. So I really wanted to pull one up and kind of give you an idea. So this is a grant reviewer panelist scoring rubric that I'm going to be reviewing here. How many times can I say review? But then I'm going to be going over here. And so for the reviewer, it tells them it has 8 specific scores that they will be looking out for. So the first one is demonstration of needs for funding. This is a common one across the board for small businesses. Intended goals and outcomes. Description of the project or initiative over the course of 3 years. So in this particular grant, they're requesting 3 years worth of funding. So I'm going to stop right there at the first 3. So number 1, demonstration of need for funding. This is a very common one that you will see across your applications. Okay, you need to be able to articulate why do you need the money. If you can't explain why you need this money, then let's think back to your kids. If your kids were to call you right now and ask you for $5,000, well, my oldest is 9. So if my 9-year-old is asking me for $5,000, I've got some questions. And the answers better be good. It's no different, guys. When you are approaching someone who is a partner, okay, is a potential partner, you need to be able to explain what exactly is it that you need the money for? Why do you need this money? Why aren't you able to come up with this money on your own? Right? Can we talk about that? What is the demonstration of need for funding? So some of these you will see most common, especially right now, is repercussions of COVID-19. We've been affected by COVID-19, which in turn has really affected our working capital. Things, that's honestly the most common right now. It could be something like, for example, for myself, it's, women are typically denied business grants. And if they are, denied business loans. And if they are, then we are usually granted a lower amount, a higher percentage, a lower term for repayment. And so acquiring funding through traditional methods, I'm encountering a lot of prejudices. And that's just one way that I would answer that question. And I wanted to give you kind of that guidance so that you have an idea of what kind of answers you would be able to provide. So the second is intended goals and outcomes. Of course, you have to know exactly what is your goal in getting this money. Most recently, I applied to a $5,000 grant, and I knew that, of course, I have a bigger goal, but my goal with this money is permitting, I believe it was. So I need this for permitting because XYZ. What are the outcomes that I can expect? Well, we anticipate upwards in the 200 graduating students. So the sooner that I can get open, the sooner I can serve and impact and change the lives of these 200 graduates, right? You have to be able to speak to the goals and outcomes of your business. And if you don't have goals and outcomes, this is why the grant application is a positive one, honestly, because again, it really identifies the areas in your business that just need a little bit more attention. And then number 3, it's the description of the project or initiative over the course of 3 years. So this would just be a basic breakdown of the programming or, whatever the initiative is here for this particular grant. Okay, number 4 through 6 is the 3-year budget aligned to annual goals. Do you see how it's going to always tie back to what are the goals? What's the impact? What are we trying to accomplish? The second one here is the strategic plan. And then the third one, or number 6, is going to be a monitor and evaluation plan. Okay, so in this particular plan, we're looking at this one, from what I can see, is really for nonprofits because it is asking for just a little bit more. So monitor and evaluation plan, that is typically seen with nonprofits. A strategic plan, a strategic action plan, this can be synonymous. This can be both for nonprofits as well as for-profits, because your action plan could be your marketing plan, for example. Your action plan could be your revenue increase plan. It could be a number of things. And then 7 and 8 is a sustainability plan, as well as alignment of goals within the grant application to the mission and goals of this grant. So you'll notice how the last question is, and this is across the board, pretty much all the grants that I've seen are exactly like this. How does your mission align to our mission? So this is just a rule of thumb that I have. Before I apply to anything, I need to make sure that my mission with the Academy and the mission of the grant that I am applying for, that funder and I, we need to be on the same page as far as what we're trying to accomplish. It's not enough for me to just ask for money. They really are partnering with you so that you can maximize the impact of their funds. So you are just an extension of their impact, and they're using their resources to really achieve that. So you want to make sure that there's that alignment. And so what do? You go into their core values, you go into their mission statement, you look at their past funders. These are just some tactics that you can use to make sure that you're in alignment. And then with your sustainability plan, we've talked about this before. I have an entire episode on sustainability. And basically it's just, how are you diversifying your revenue and implementing a funding plan for you small businesses? This is a part of that sustainability plan. Okay, so now that you have an idea of what a scoring rubric can look like, I wanted to just go through really quickly and go through the point system. So this particular point, it's a 10-point total. So 1 point, you need improvement. 2 points, you're average. 3 points, you're very good. 4 points, you are exceptional. And it has a description here of what exactly they mean. So here's an example. 1 point needs improvement. So it says here, description of need is hard to understand, verbose, or uses educational jargon. Guys, again, if you go by the rubric, it will tell you your do's and don'ts. So you don't want to add jargon to your proposal, right? You want to make it super easy to understand, because you don't want to get 1 point where it says hard to understand. It is not clear what the specific need is, and no data or information is included to support justifying need. Again, make sure that if it says, okay, you're getting 1 point if you provide no data, okay, so then let me go in and provide some data. Let me go in and make sure that I'm clear and I'm concise and I'm easy to understand, and I have data that supports what my need is. Okay, so again, we are saving time. We know exactly what we're writing because we're using the rubric as our guiding force in writing this application. So where do you find the rubric? At this point you ask, well, Sloan, where do I find the rubric? Now I understand why this is important. I get it. But where do I even go? I've never seen it before. Chances are that you have seen it and you just haven't realized it because you're not looking for it, right? Sometimes when we're not looking for things, we miss out. So let me give you some hints as to where exactly you can find it. Number 1, it's going to be in the guidelines. It could be in eligibility or in FAQs. And this is why I always stress the importance of read through the application, read through the web page. If there's a PDF with additional guidelines, read it all. read it all and print it all if you absolutely have to. Highlight it, memorize it. Okay, I'm just kidding. But definitely, take the time to read through all of it because the rubric will normally be there. Now, what happens if it's not there? Then in this case, attend an informational webinar. If there is an informational webinar available, I always encourage you to attend live if you can, only because that's when I feel I gain the most value. I like being present for the Q&A that's at the end. So if it's not, if the rubric is not within the presentation, and they usually will drop major gems as far as what the funder's looking for, but you could always just ask at the end in Q&A. And then if you attend the informational session, it's not there, the guidelines, eligibility, and FAQs aren't there, and that's frequently asked questions, the rubric isn't there, then at that point, just email the support phone number, or email. It'll usually be the grants administrator that whose email will be there, or just a general inbox for the grants team. But definitely just send them an email and say, hi, I'm getting ready to apply to your grant for this cycle, and I am looking for the rubric. I don't see it. And just mention, I've done my due diligence. I've looked everywhere. I don't see it. Would you be able to provide me a copy of what it is that you are looking for? I really want to make sure that I hit the mark on this. And trust me, they will appreciate you so much more for taking the time to do your research rather than just submitting an application without really knowing whether or not this is the right fit. Right? You want to be conscious of their time as well as yours. And then my next point is, how can you use it to your benefit? Well, we've already talked about how this is saving you time. Of course, this is saving time for the grant reviewer. It is ensuring that you are right on target with what they're looking for, but how can you use it to your benefit? So like I mentioned, you can print it out, you can follow it when you are writing out your proposal, literally keep it right next to you to make sure that you're hitting all those points. But then also when you submit your proposal to your proofreader, which again, I have an entire episode on how to find a proofreader if you're not a grant writer and you don't work within funding. How exactly do you find a proofreader, and what information should they know? So I'll link that episode down below as well so you can take a listen. But if you have a proofreader, or if you're proofreading it yourself before turning it in, which I highly recommend that you do, and you're scoring yourself, okay? Take a clean copy of that rubric and score yourself. Try and get as close to 100% as possible, or in this case, that 10 points as possible for each and every category. Because again, the closer you are to hitting the mark, the higher of a chance you have of actually getting that funding. So it's important for you to be objective if you are going to be proofreading your own application. Make sure that you're not really leaving any room for gray here, okay? So just like we saw in this example, you have to be very clear. You have to be very concise. We don't want fluff words. We just want you to get to the point. So you either meet the criteria or you don't. And if you don't, keep working at it until you do. This is a great way for you to catch yourself, to catch your mistakes before you just hit submit. We are CEOs and our time is valuable, and we want to make sure that we're optimizing on every single opportunity that we have. So I hope that these tips were helpful. I know that if you're new to the funding space, if you're new to seeking funding for this vision that's been placed on your heart and your hands, it can be overwhelming. But it is about just sticking with the process. It's about learning, it's about evolving, and just think about how beneficial it is for you to get into the intricacies of your business. Don't you feel so much better when you can speak to the financial aspect of your business, to the grandness of your business? Because grants really do force you to think so much bigger. I've had so many amazing conversations with people this week that have said, Sloan, honestly, thank you. Thank you for encouraging me. Thank you, because I've applied to grants that I honestly didn't know existed, but more importantly, I didn't even know that I could do this. You gave me the confidence to do this. And not only that, but I can see my business as being so much bigger than what I thought it was. And that is encouraging. And it should be encouraging for you to know that you can do this. Absolutely, 100%, you are capable of doing this. Otherwise, the opportunity would have never been presented to you in the first place. Visionary, I thank you so much for being here. I would love it if you would take just a second to leave us a review. It really helps us out so that we can continue to grow, so that we can continue to partner with other guests and other speakers. And so if you would just take a second on Spotify or Apple and leave us a review, I would thank you so, so much. Again, thanks for being here, and I will catch you in next week's episode. Many blessings on you.